Well, let's just. I think we're just starting out just like really hot at this point.
Cold turkey!
Yeah, it's a cold open. Oh, there you go, cold open.
Cold turkey!
Hi, welcome to another episode of the podcast. I think, given that we've been through a lot in the past couple weeks, we decided not to get too heavy on, economics, housing, politics. Of course, we can never 100% escape it because, um, we can't be like a tiny country. I
It'll always be there. It's unavoidable.
Yeah, I think politics is always unavoidable, but I think we just want to keep it light because I think this month of January has been kind of like almost at this point a year. It feels like a year almost, and
It doesn't really feel like a year.
I don't know.
It's a
I
little
guess
like
this ranges. I guess it ranges between person to person. I don't know.
it doesn't feel like a year to me. It
Mm.
feels like last year just kind of existed for a second and then it was gone to me.
Last year was eternally March 17th for me. All of 2020 was
I
March
mean,
17th.
honestly, I feel like it's kind of weird to think like it's a new year because it feels like it's starting the same all over
Mhm,
again. Like it's essentially kind of like the same situation, right? Like
mhm.
everything started around beginning of January of last year. It's still here, except there are now strains.
I know it's it's like I think around this time last year we started hearing about COVID a little bit, and I think because we're Asian Americans, we were like listening in into like Asian like news. It's like, hey, what's going on? What's going on? What's up? And then it started
Yeah.
becoming more and more of a thing when like Mardi Gras started happening and like what folks were coming back from for Chinese New Year, or like, well, not Chinese New Year but
Yep.
like Lunar New Year. So yeah, I think we're on a similar path. We're recording like Sunday, and I may release this on Monday. So um
Sunday.
yeah, and like I think one of the most recent things, I know we said we weren't going to get into politics, but I guess we're going into it. Um, uh, um, I think South Africa has like a travel ban now, or like there's a consideration of a travel ban from South Africa because their strain is
Isn't there a
apparently,
strain?
yeah, there's a South African strain. God damn it, strain. Sorry, South African strain, and then a UK variant. I should have just said variant. A UK strain, and then there's a Brazilian strain
Oh
which I've
Jesus.
heard
Okay,
of.
maybe we shouldn't start here. We'll take it
Yeah,
into
I
a
think
different direction.
let's
So,
let's start happy. Have have some rain clouds in the middle, and then end happy.
what have you been doing recently to kind of pass the time? Like, has there been anything that you've been particularly doing?
Uh, Unknowingly pranking my friends through Animal Crossing.
Am I gonna go back to Animal Crossing and see like a whole bunch of letters?
Yes, yes,
Uh,
yes.
I haven't touched Animal Crossing, which I think is a lot different compared to the beginning of last year when I was like Animal Crossing. And now I'm
Yeah,
just like I haven't played.
well, I think for me it's like Animal Crossing has been my workout game. Well, in terms of workout, like on the treadmill.
Mm-hmm.
I need to make sure not to like touch my mic because it has a faulty wire and like it actually stops the recording if I do it.
Oh.
Anyways, um, yeah, it has helped me out like walking. It motivates me to walk, and I don't know why. And it's just been kind of weird.
I think there are just certain things that kind of help you like get through doing tasks, you know? Like for me it's like listening to music that has no lyrics. So,
Yeah, I think it's because it's very mundane. Like it's very soothing. It's very kind of like, I wouldn't say turn off your brain because I've been doing things where I'm like, I started. If folks have listened to the beginning of like me doing this new project on my YouTube channel, like, which is this podcast, is that I wanted to turn my island into a hiking thing, and I said that
right.
like back in like November when I got my Switch, sometime in late summer,
Actually,
early fall.
now that you mention it, I need to send you this guy's Twitter
Mhm.
because his entire island is based off a hiking trail too.
I've only saw that one video you showed me.
Okay, I will send it to you later.
Yeah, yeah, I would definitely see it. But I've learned that there was some bullshit. that I will wanted to make a mountain that's like a three-tiered mountain. You can't build a stair to the highest part. Like you could build that level to the top, but you can never get to the top. I'm just like,
The
wait,
fourth
what?
level.
The fourth level. And I'm just like, what the
Yeah.
fuck? I had plans. I had laid out plans. I was like gonna like terraform it to look like a mountain, but no, I can't. And the top of
You
my
just have to
mountain,
adjust. Just have to
the,
readjust.
I guess so. Like the top of that mountain will just have a green patch.
Mm-hmm.
I'll have absolutely no idea what to do. So
Oh
I don't know.
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I've been taking this time. For those who don't know, I've had a really rough couple weeks. I think it started kind of like the week after the 5th. Well, which day that was, but I had like a really bad week. Um, I think 2 weeks ago, and then it was just kind of like just tough. Um,
Mm.
just kind of like I wouldn't say it was like a mental health thing. Maybe it is, but it was just
We're good.
I was just feeling really blue and like really down in the dumps for a bit, and then the week after it got a little better. It got better, and then it kind of there was a bunch of anxiety around like the whole vaccine, and like my parents were asking, and you know they knew some folks that have got affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, so it was really rough for the past couple weeks. But I think things are getting slightly better. And right now, I got my parents a schedule to do it, to get their
Oh,
vaccine.
claps.
Yeah, and the fun thing about like having being in an Asian family, and I'm sure this is also like part of like other groups too, but let's just say for the sake of the conversation, as an Asian family, that my mom and dad were like, oh, like what if you like just like let them know? So like, hey, you live with your you are like the primary care person for your mom and dad. Why don't you just ask for the vaccine? I was like, okay, mom, okay, dad, that's not how that works. That's not how that works.
Speaking of which, I actually heard that there are people who line up at those vaccine sites waiting
Mhm.
for the leftover tests at the end of the day, which I find very interesting.
Which is, yeah, that's weird because I saw that for the Long Beach one, because we live in SoCal. So there's like several mass vaccination sites like
Mhm.
Dodger Stadium, Disneyland. I think Long Beach has one. And then El Sereno has one. And then I think, does South Central have? I'm sure that South Central probably goes to the Forum in Hollywood. I think. I don't know. I don't want to misspeak, especially in this time where everything is going around. I
Yeah.
only know like kind of my immediate area, and then like what I hear on like local media and news. And
I mean, I
apparently,
think that's kind
yeah,
of what matters right now anyways, right? Because
yeah,
it's mostly pertaining to the area you live in, so
hmm, yeah. And so it was interesting hearing about that in the Long Beach area, because you would think it's cool that they got like the security guards and like the people who work to maintain the site got vaccinated, but it was just kind of like you kind of hear these dueling like I wouldn't say train wrecks, but dueling like stories about like we don't have enough vaccines. And then you have the situation in Long Beach where there was like, oh, we have extra doses, we'll just give it to the security guard. And like I'm not saying they shouldn't get it, by no means they shouldn't get it, but it's just it's hits kind of that nerve. I think if you're a person that already has vaccine anxiety, in the sense of like trying to help get your family to get vaccinated, and you hear a story like that happening, and so like I just kind of feel not so great about it, but at the same time good for them, like I celebrate them getting it, but at the same time like there's a lot of other meaning that a good amount of people feel like they're not getting accurate information about the vaccine distribution. And this is just distribution. This is not vaccine hesitancy where people are like absolutely like saying, I will not get the vaccine.
I think maybe I mean I heard recently through like a lot of the news having to do with like the inauguration stuff like that when Biden took over in office
Oh yeah, that happened since the last time we met.
yeah. Oh God, Jesus Christ. But anyway,
We got a
I
new
heard
papa. Just kidding.
Dad? No, but I mean, I think it's one I feel very relieved.
Right.
And it's kind of weird because a lot of like the press meetings feel so mundane, which is a complete contrast to like before. Like I remember reading an article where somebody was like, Biden's first press conference happened at the what was it called? What's that room called?
The Oval Office? Was
No,
it the
no, no,
Oval
no, no.
Office or the Situation Room?
It's the press secretary who like goes to the podium and answers questions with like
like the Kayleigh McEnany for the press. Oh, the press briefing room. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Well, we kind of get an idea. Yeah.
Right. And you
Yeah.
know, I think it says a lot about how much more mundane it feels that I remember two of the press secretaries in Trump's presidency, but I don't remember the name of the press secretary right now. But I remember there was like a headline where they were saying like the first press conference has just happened and it feels so much more uneventful, and that's a refreshing feeling. But going back to the COVID stuff, I did read somewhere, or I heard somewhere, that when he took over, I think his original plan was to rework Trump's original distribution plan for the COVID vaccine. And when they took over and did that, they realized there was nothing to rework. So they're basically starting from scratch. So
which that is insanely scary. And I think that for me, it's insane because I've been living it in the way of like a community member or like so a community organizer would, right? You're like talking to families, you're getting bombarded with questions about vaccines or food or like what is some relief that I can do to help my child along the way and stuff like that. You'll get that. And then to hear from like on a federal level that there wasn't any plan for like a second distribution of vaccines, I was just like, what?
yeah, I had the same feelings. It was very much like you said you had a plan. How do you not have a plan, you know, kind of situation?
Well, to be fair, I would say Trump said that he will show his taxes for the past 4 years, and he has literally spent 4 years saying that, oh yeah, it'll eventually come out. It'll eventually come out. It'll eventually come out. He leaves office, zero word on it.
I don't
about his taxes.
I mean, I'm not going to say that I never had faith, but I never had faith. So
I guess so. I think part of me, I was thinking if there was any way for a leader to like bring people together, I would think it would be a pandemic to do so. And he didn't take it.
I think I had a lot of discussions where part of me wanted to have faith that, you know, he would do well in the response because, you know, Trump doing well is like, as much as I'd be like, God damn it, you know, he's doing a good job. I think like in the end, it means that, you know, like a lot of people are getting helped, you know, and that doesn't feel like what exactly happened. So yeah, I don't know.
I think part of it is like, I think if he were to actually tactfully do something about what had happened, it doesn't nullify all the things about like immigration or like all this stuff that he did beforehand. It doesn't nullify that, but it does signal that he actually does care, or he actually like actually, you know, knew what to do at that moment versus, you know, like being jaded, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I was somewhat hopeful. And then the thing that it was like a roller coaster, it's like it hopeful. And then he kept on calling it China virus. And I was like, okay, shit. And then he said $2,000 checks for everyone. Yes. And then, oh, I guess it's just $600. Damn. You know.
Yeah. It baffles me a little bit how a lot of people can, look at Biden and think that, like he him being in office would be a hindrance on your life, when in reality it's not really like he's going to take away any rights from you. Or you know what, like I will say this, I feel like a
Mhm.
good predominant majority
Mhm.
of Trump's base is white people, which I mean, obviously my facts can be wrong, but
Right.
I have a strong feeling that that's correct.
Mhm.
Um, and it seeing as how that might be the case, I feel like um, if Biden were to put in place certain rules and regulations in the coming months or years,
Mhm.
I don't think it would necessarily affect any of Trump's base really in any negative way. Um, like if anything, I think it does more for people who like DACA, like if you're a dreamer or
Mhm.
if you're a person fighting for trans rights. Like I think those kind of communities will definitely be helped out during this presidency. But a lot of the other things I think will just stay relatively very similar, if not slightly different for
Mhm.
a majority of people who support Trump. So
Yeah. Well,
I don't
that's
know.
well, it's kind of weird. It's like we're talking to individuals that, you know, voted for Trump, and I'm not, well, okay. Well, there's another conversation about the folks that, you know, stormed the Capitol, and that's kind of the very extreme end of things. But the idea that, you know, on its base level, like just an average Trump voter that, you know, holds conservative views, are not racist, and like, you know, just want to live their life and like, you know, on their own terms, which I think most Americans just want to do that with regardless of political, you know, affiliation. You know, like they want to help support the family, some really want to help the community, and like why should we legislate, you know, people from doing that, or like, you know, force people to stop doing that, or force people to do that? You know, there's everybody is very different when it comes to this country, right?
Right.
And I think this is a very roundabout way of like, I've heard this from one of Rolling Stone's former journalist, Matt Taibbi, and like this idea and notion that once we like left the Cold War, you know, when communism wasn't the threat, when fascism wasn't the threat, and terrorism doesn't like, you know, hold the same bite or fear in many people, a lot of companies, media companies, use this idea of like, let's make each other the enemy now. And like, since that, you know, since like almost a decade of that, I think Trump was the Trump was like the the outcome of that, like having these this existential like threat be us, the American people. You know what I mean? So, which
Yeah.
it, to some degree, there's some truth to that, because you know there are some there are definitely groups that really want to kill or like harm a lot of minority groups. You know, there are a lot of groups that want to do that. That is true. But to make this kind of like term that says if you're a Republican, then you fully hate black people, or you fully don't want immigrants to be in the United States and things like that. And I just think that's kind of like a weirdly, that's like a weird way of like stirring up a bunch of people. And I don't know. Do you think that like, no, I don't say do you think that. Do you agree with that assessment that the biggest thing that can get people's attention is like the hate between others?
I feel like it could be true.
Yeah.
Um,
It's a theory. Okay, it's a theory. This is a journalist, and he has his thoughts. A lot of people
yeah.
tends to kind of like go with it, but it's just one journalist with a group of other people that kind of like really agree with that assessment. And to me, I could kind of see it, but I'm just all like, I still kind of have faith in others to make good decisions, but I just don't know.
Yeah.
Who am I to say? Yeah.
Mm. I want to or not want to say anything, but I feel like personally I tend to be much more pessimistic about certain things, but
Hmm.
in light of certain things I want to be an optimist.
Hmm.
When it comes to discussions about like Trump's supporter base or just things related to anything that has resulted from Trump being the president of the United States, I think like it just seems very difficult for me to kind of wrap myself around the idea that people could support him fully.
Hmm.
Um like obvious I have family members who supported Trump, right?
Hmm.
And um to me as like someone who I've grown up with and I've known basically all my life, I sometimes have to fight with the inner thoughts in my head that like I love these people, but also I know they support Trump, and Trump basically kind of embodies a lot of these n- traits that have been aligned with like extremist groups. And it's hard for me to definitively say for certain that like somebody who supports Trump is necessarily good. Just
Hmm.
I don't know if that's the best way to put it, but like I know that their intentions are well. Like I'm
Hmm.
pretty sure if you were to talk to a Trump supporter and it wasn't like arguing or anything, it was just like a regular discussion, right? Like a
Yeah.
lot of the things they would point out would be things that they align themselves with because it's probably part of their experience growing up or just their ideals or just how they perceive the world in general. But I don't I can't compute it with the fact that like we were that close to having like our democracy overthrown.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to definitively say that somebody who supports Trump is innocent because of the fact that a lot of people who do support Trump are partaking in things such as like the attempted coup of the
Hmm.
government. And it's just hard for me to like rationalize that in my head.
Yeah, and it's just like that. Yeah, that's true. There are people of color that does support what Trump does, and like I think it is for us a way to we need to figure out how do we grapple with that identity
Right.
that where we are, a group of persons of color, but there are groups of people within that kind of like bubble that are super conservative, and like for I guess for some reason, not without reason, like we are families that survive atrocities, like real like tragedies, like Southeast Asian. Oh, sorry, I put that on you. Well, I'm Southeast
Oh, I'm
Asian.
okay.
um it put me on the spot here. Put myself on the spot. But yeah, like we're of a country that's gone through a lot, and a lot of our family has the scars of that, you know and so there are reasons why there's certain populations of us that tend to go towards more conservative views and certain conservative ideas and things like that. There are folks that live in the Latinx community that are super conservative, and like, well, is that wrong? Is that good? Or is that something we should have a really good conversation about? you know
Mm, yeah.
and I don't think
And
it's
then
necessarily too I don't think it's existentially bad, like the whole storm the Capitol bad, but it's like I think it's something that we should really like have a conversation about and like really talk through.
yeah, I agree. I just have a lot of mixed feelings when I
Yeah.
I think about it. And I don't think I would have had these feelings if Trump never went into office. Like,
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I think it's interesting. It's like it took 4 years of Trump to get a lot of people into politics, or at least acknowledge it's something that can impact people's lives to
yeah,
some degree.
I look forward, and this sounds really strange,
Mhm.
but I look forward to looking at future polls to see kind of like how different percentages of voters who participate in elections are, especially for our demographic.
Mhm.
Seeing as how people within my age range, which is like around like 18 to 25 ish, tend to be a part of the group that don't partake in voting as frequently. So I do wonder if after the 4 years we've just had, if that's going to change or become like a bigger statistic versus like previous years before. And I think that also ties in personally for me with my views of Gen Z as a group of like not progressives per se, because I'm pretty sure there are a lot of people who are growing up to become, you know, they could be conservative or they can be more
Mhm.
progressive and whatnot. But I do wonder how many I guess the best way I could put it would be spokespeople will be
Mhm.
coming out of that group, because I feel like for like millennials, right? Like we're kind of not necessarily like um as vocal as a lot of Gen Z kids are nowadays, but we're not
Mhm.
necessarily not like political or a part of the political space. Um
Yeah, I if I were to take anything out of like sorry, hold your thought, I guess. I have a bad habit of doing that. But if I think about like millennial media, or like some of the fiction and the cartoons that has come through, like BoJack Horseman and like Rick and Morty, and I tried to watch Rick and Morty. Um but I there's like this sense of like jadedness and like nihilism that like is kind of like the linchpin for like millennial identity, which is
mhm.
kind of like, it's, I understand, like, it comes from somewhere, but in the middle of a COVID-19 outbreak and like me going through a lot of stuff at a current moment, it's like, yeah, I'm gonna save Rick and Morty for a later time. I just can't with this show. I just like, yeah, let's just like,
Not do that.
yeah, like I want to explore these crazy questions like Black Mirror and all of these things. I want to explore these, but during a pandemic may not be a good idea.
Not today.
Yeah, not today, not today.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I haven't watched anything like BoJack Horseman. The only thing I've watched in recent time is Miracle Workers on HBO
Hmm.
and the WandaVision show on Disney Plus.
Okay. I never heard of Miracle Workers, and
Oh,
I still need to get my family's Disney Plus password.
Miracle Workers is a very interesting show. Also, I think what got me
Hmm.
in not invested per se, what got me on board with watching it was the fact that Daniel Radcliffe plays one of the main characters. But the second thing that made me want to watch it is the fact that Steve Buscemi is God.
Okay. Okay. That seems all right.
Okay, so long story short, right?
Okay.
Have you ever watched American Horror Story before?
Yes. I love
Okay,
American Horror Story, and I need to get back on it.
okay, it's not that.
Oh.
but but the premise of like having the same cast but different premises for each season is essentially what is carried
Oh,
over
okay.
with Miracle
Okay.
Workers.
All right.
It's
I
the
see
same
what you're saying.
cast, different story.
Hmm.
But essentially the first season, in a very like layman's term kind of like situation to describe the beginning of the show is
Hmm.
in Miracle Workers, heaven is a corporation. So when you die, you become a worker, a part of heaven. And there are departments in heaven that you can work in. And
Hmm.
God is kind of like this jaded person who's been like, I'm so tired of hearing all of this bad news. Like, why can't someone just compliment me and say that I'm doing a good job? That kind of thing. And
Hmm.
the whole main story takes place in this place called the Department of Answered Prayers, which is essentially like this, like, for example, right, if you were like like you lock your keys in your car, right? And you're
Right.
like, oh, God damn it. If there's someone out there, like please help me get into my car so I can get my keys, that kind of situation. It goes to that department and they try to answer those prayers if it's possible. But there is a group, there's like a small batch, actually no, a reasonable sized batch of prayers that are considered to be impossible, and that's like ending all wars in the world.
Right.
Right. Like you'd want that to be possible, but it's kind of impossible according to the show. So
It's like asking a 3-year-old what they want for Christmas.
yeah. But yeah. So the whole thing is a part of that department. The characters are trying to like answer those prayers, and at some point God decides that he wants to blow up Earth. And then one of the main characters is like, if I can answer one of these prayers that are considered to be impossible, you have to spare Earth. And that's the entire season, like whether or not they do it or not.
Okay.
It's good. I really like that show.
For a second there, I thought you were saying I watched the show because I have a kid crush on Daniel Radcliffe. Just kidding.
No, but you know, I did watch somebody's video about Harry Potter recently. I think it's their channel is called the Cosmonaut Variety Hour. And he did a review on it, right? And he was talking about the main cast, or the main three of like the Harry Potter characters, which is like Harry, Hermione, and Ron.
Yeah.
And he said that he felt like out of all of the characters like who have come out of Harry Potter, he believed that Daniel Radcliffe kind of became like, his acting was not as great in Harry Potter. He was saying like he kind of has grown into acting as the years have passed.
Right.
And so he was saying that like in a lot of future roles that Daniel Radcliffe has taken, he feels like you can see his growth as an actor versus the beginning when he just started off in Harry Potter.
Right.
And so I kind of agree with that assertion. I think he's actually like a pretty good actor, if I had to say so myself. It's very interesting the roles that he's taken in his time after. So
yeah, I think he has a similar trajectory as the guy from Twilight. Shoot, what is his name?
Oh, Robert Pattinson.
Robert Pattinson, right? It has been kind of a very strange, kind of like meandering, but always been kind of positive. I think he's just kind of like working through like, hey, I'm just gonna do projects that seems to be interesting. If it makes money, cool. If it doesn't, it's like it was an experience, you know?
Yeah.
And I think some choices has been kind of like, and some choices has been kind of like, well, you know, it could be The Lighthouse, you know, where he actually could like really be an actor in that space and like, you know, really turned it up to 11 with William Dafoe.
Yeah, I find it very funny, right? That you know, like I think Daniel Radcliffe, his kind of path on acting has been much more mainstream, whereas I see Robert Pattinson having much more of like a eclectic kind of route to acting. Like a lot of his films have been very interesting to look at, like Lighthouse, and the fact that now he's Batman, which is
all
like,
of a sudden Batman.
Yeah, you know, so it is very interesting to see how like these actors turn out, and I kind of look forward to seeing how like a couple of future actors turn out too. Like I'm really interested to see how Zendaya and Tom Holland are going to be in the futer. Like I think they're really good. And
also like Tom Holland is around your age, right?
I feel like he's younger, but
yeah,
I don't know.
He's definitely younger than me. I know when you said like voting demographics and you're like 18 to 25, and I physically aged as we were sitting down here where I'm like,
no, I can't say anything. I'm about to turn 25, so that doesn't count for me. I'm about to be out of this demographic.
I'm losing it. Kalani.
I'm only 25. That's already scary.
Oh wait, I'm turning 26. Wait, no, 27 this year. No.
I'm about to hit my quarter life crisis, so this is going to be a time, you know. But no, I do look forward to seeing how a couple of these actors turn out to be in the future. Like I know Tom Holland has Cherry coming out, and that seems like an interesting film.
Yeah, I want to watch that.
I do
Cherry.
too.
Yeah.
And then I know Zendaya has that one that she shot during quarantine, but I don't
Yeah.
remember
With
who.
the son of Denzel Washington.
It's
I
the
forgot his
son of
name.
Denzel Washington.
Yeah, yeah. He was in Black's Klansman, and he was also in Tenet with Christopher Nolan.
Oh, jeez,
Yeah.
I didn't know that, but
Let me see this. There was a big controversy because there was like an age difference
yeah,
between
I do agree.
Zendaya and him.
Yeah, I mean, I always find those situations kind of difficult
Hmm.
because there are a lot of times where female actors have a tendency to be a lot younger than their male co-stars.
Hmm.
And I think that's happened a lot in a lot of films. So I don't know how like I 100% feel about it, but I know it's a thing.
John David Washington.
Oh, interesting. But yeah,
Yep.
I know they have a huge age gap.
Yeah.
Excuse me. But I
Malcolm and
do
Marie is, I think, the movie. Let me double check that. Let me confirm that.
but yeah, I do look forward to seeing like how certain actors will kind of progress their careers. I don't know
You know,
off the top of.
like the kids from It.
Oh yeah.
And then the kids from Stranger Things. You know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
think Millie Bobby Brown has like literally a HBO movie coming out this year, which is like Godzilla versus King Kong.
Right,
The
yeah.
trailer just came out for that, and I haven't seen the trailer. And also, I don't think I followed the series. I'm just kind of like, I guess I'll just wait till later to watch that. I don't know. I
I
did
agree
watch.
though.
Well, I think I'm in the mood. Yeah, this is a weird kind of tangent, but like even though
We're becoming a film podcast currently.
I've had this weird thing where even though I'm in like this like I wouldn't say crisis or anything, but like in this kind of funk, like I'm still consuming like highbrow artsy film still, or like from like directors that are like highly acclaimed but like divisive in the audience scores. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, like the director of Call Me by Your Name, he has a like a mini series on HBO. And here's how this connects. It's the kid from one of the kids from It is in that show in a predominant way,
Oh.
and he's an interesting character, very interesting character. I
I
think
feel like I know which one.
I forgot which
Is his
character.
name Finn Wolfhard?
No, not Finn Wolfhard.
It's
No,
not him?
it's not him. It's not him. I think is
Oh.
Donald Gleese. Let me double check. The show's called We Are Who We Are.
We are who we are. I'm looking at the picture. Where are they? Yeah, I have no idea.
It's the cast. I mean, it's cool that I have this iPad, but it's also like an old iPad, so it's super slow. Even when I restarted it. Jack Dylan Grazer. Yeah.
Oh, he's not in. Oh, it's an. Oh, he was in It. Okay.
Yeah. Oh wait, yeah, he was in It, and then the new actress, the African American actress in here, she's amazing. I want to see her in more stuff. Like she is so good in this show. I'm just like, I just can't wait. Like I think, she's gonna be up there for like actresses, and I hope she wins all the awards when this show comes up during award season. So
Ooh. Maybe.
yeah.
I'm excited to see the talent that comes out in the future. Like I feel like there'll be a lot of actors who are going to become really good in the coming years.
I think talent both in front and behind the camera too. You have Minari that's coming out with
That's right.
In at A24 a Korean American movie. I hesitate to say Korean American movie.
It is because I know the main actor is Korean.
Mm-hmm.
But
Steven
I forgot. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, Steven Yeun. from Walking Dead fame.
You know what? I will say this. I unfortunately don't know too much about the people behind the camera, but A24 has been a growing production company that I've noticed in terms
Yeah.
of like films that I've seen. So I look forward to the films that they come out with in the future. And it's kind of like interesting, right? Like you when you're younger, you don't really notice a lot of the beginning like credits that show you who the depart or who the companies are, but like as I've gotten older, there's like A24 and Blumhouse for horror films, and
Mhm.
it's interesting to see what companies are being established in what kind of films.
Right, right. Yeah,
Yeah.
A24 has been kind of like this indie darling. I wouldn't say a voice for diversity. Like if there is ever a company that has been like, pulling that diversity card, I get super, super suspicious on like the reasons why they're doing it. But it seems like it's a very genuine thing of like, oh well, like they see value in people of color stories. So like therefore they're producing them. They are giving these directors, these producers the voice to do those projects, which I feel that A24 has really kind of like did that for many projects. So I'm like,
Mm.
I'm okay with it, but I'm like, I'm always so skeptical whenever things like that, I guess it comes from the whole Disney acquisition of like all of these different properties, and I'm just all like, okay, all right,
Disney's
calm.
the conglomerate.
Okay, it's like calm down, House Mouse.
I have a question.
Go on. Yeah,
Since you brought up Minari as a
yeah.
film, do you have the same opinions with a lot of other people about them being snubbed at the Golden Globes for being put into foreign films versus like Best Picture?
I've had a middle of the road type of reaction.
Also, Loki, I feel like we've talked about this before, but I don't remember.
It was because we talked about it because of The Farewell.
Oh, I love The Farewell, though. That's such a good film.
I know, it's such a good film. Justice for Aquafina. I'm just saying,
Honestly,
justice for Aquafina for getting, she got the Golden Globe but didn't get the Academy Awards, and so I'm just all like, saying.
Sure, Jan. No.
Well, think about this: Parasite won Best Director and then Best Picture. None of the actors got nominations.
Yeah.
What are you really trying to say, Academy Awards, when you're trying to, talk about diversifying, your electors for like, these movies, but you're not going to recognize, these movies with actual actors that are like really, really good,
I do wonder if like I don't want it to be this, right?
Right.
But when it comes to awards, I wonder if there's like a diversity quota that they have to fill. Like I don't want that to be the case, right? Like
Yeah.
on one hand, like Parasite winning was such a big thing,
Mm-hmm.
and rightly deserved. That film was great. I love Parasite, but I do like question their intentions for nominating it in that category.
Or
Whereas,
motivation, yeah.
right, yeah.
Yeah.
And it is interesting that it like Parasite did get nominated in Best Picture, but Minari didn't. And Minari is like very tied and ingrained with US culture and immigration.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Parasite kind of delves more into kind of like I would personally think like moral discussions of people.
Mm-hmm. And like
And yeah.
social standing and like society and wealth inequality.
Right.
There's a big part of that, and like respecting. I don't want to say help, respecting people that of those individuals that are working in like retail, working in restaurants, working in like just jobs where they feel like they're just getting by, and even then sometimes they don't have a lot still.
Right. I mean it more so in the sense that I feel like the meaning of Parasite as a film seems to me to be much more ambiguous versus like Minari, and I don't want to compare the two films because I don't think they're in any way similar at all, aside from the fact that, you know, the language that they speak is Korean. Um, but like to put Minari in like a foreign film category versus a best picture category when like is it the Academy Awards or the Golden Globes? Well, either way, one of those award shows is like I feel like they're very inherently based in America, like US culture or like English, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And yet a film that is so inherently tied with the culture of America and whatnot is being put as a foreign film. It seems very contradictory to me.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask you a question. So fact checking. It's December 4th.
The what?
Wait, December 24th. This article came out in the Hollywood Reporter. It says Inside Golden Globes Minari controversy. So it's a Golden Globes. I was like thinking it's like Academy Awards have been postponed until March.
I was pretty sure it was the Golden Globes. I just wasn't 100% sure.
Yeah,
But
I think we just added in the frustration of the farewell. I think that still is stinging. Well, same thing. The farewell was nominated as a foreign film and not part of like the best films category. At least I don't think so. Let me double check that.
I don't know if it's just me, but I personally feel a little bit snubbed about the farewell, and I think that's partially tied to the fact that I very heavily relate to the story of the farewell, as it kind of not 100% matches like my historical background, but a lot of it is intrinsically tied to me as a person as well. So me watching that film is very much the experience of like, wow, I get to see someone on screen that's kind of like me. So that I think I just have personal feelings about, but it does seem kind of like a sad that, you know, that film didn't go higher than a foreign films nomination, but I really do like that film, and I really like what Lulu Wang did with that film. It's a really nice
also her
movie to watch.
second film, by the way.
I
Her
know.
second film. Her initial film was like earlier in like the decade, like in the 2000s.
Yeah. I do wonder how story or movies based around minority groups will change in the future, seeing as how I don't know if maybe it's because they've become much more visible that it seems like there's a lot more of them coming out nowadays versus like when I was younger. But then again, I was a kid, so it's not like I would have noticed with my, you know, tiny Barney brain. but but you know, I think as much as I am a consumer of films that are very popular, I do occasionally like to engage in films that are maybe not as mainstream as other films, I guess. Like I really enjoyed 1917. Like I really like that film.
Oh yeah.
And I 1917 is a little difficult to classify because I feel like that is considerably a mainstream film. But like mainstream, which is not always necessarily bad, is also to me like Marvel. Like, you know, everyone's going to watch Marvel. Everyone's going to watch Wonder Woman. Granted, I haven't seen the new one yet, but besides, it just, I wonder if there will be a rise in those kind of films. And, you know, I think it does seem like that's the case. You know, there was a film I vaguely remember that I didn't watch, which was kind of like based around like, what was it? It was like an Indian kid who was really interested in like an American singer. I don't remember the premise of that film. I'm gonna look it up actually while we continue this discussion. But
Is it Slumdog Millionaire?
no, no,
No.
no, 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 no,
No.
no.
I hate
Um,
how I like immediately thought Slumdog Millionaire.
I feel like a lot of people think of that, but it is not that. It's
I just looked it up. Well, this is Wikipedia, but Farewell did not get nominated in the Academy Awards, which
ugh,
now that really irks me.
this
and I know,
hurts.
and I know this was like literally February of last year.
Uh,
Well, the thing is, it's like if you think predicting like Oscars and well, the Academy Awards, we keep going back and forth with that. Like, the Golden Globes predicting like Oscar nominations and things like that. You would think at least when Awkwafina won for Best Actress in a comedy, or was it a comedy or was it a drama? It's kind of weird. But Best Actress nonetheless. You would think she would at least get a nomination, but she didn't.
yeah.
You know?
Okay, I found the movie.
Okay.
It was released in 2019 and it's called Blinded by the Light, and it's basically
Oh
an
yeah.
an
Okay.
Asian kid who's in love with the singer Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah, and he's a South Asian living in Britain, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
In 1987.
Yeah.
To be specific, and I was very wrong in saying that he was Indian because he's not. He's Pakistani.
Still South Asian.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
I
still
was
along that
very
region.
wrong. I must correct myself. But yeah, so like films like that, and I
Mhm.
know there was another one that came out, and I don't remember what the film was called and the premise of it, but I vaguely remember that I saw something similar to it. But anyways, like I like seeing as how there was like advertising for that film, and I do remember it. I do have faith that films like that will be gaining more prominence as the years are to come.
Yeah, I do. It's a love-hate thing, and I think it's more in terms of distribution,
Mhm.
like these distribution practices versus like I of course absolutely want to see more representation both in front and behind the camera, but there are some things that I just don't necessarily like in terms of like how these films are being distributed, like they're locked behind paywalls. There are under Netflix or under Hulu, under Amazon, under all of these things, and then it's a walled garden.
Yeah.
Um, I know a lot of people didn't care well, I wasn't outraged, but I was just kind of concerned because Disney, Pixar, how they always have a short film play in front of their movies, right? They had a short about an LGBTQ person coming out to his parents, right? you know
Mhm.
Harmless story, right? You would think, but it showed in like a collection of Disney Pixar shorts, and it didn't show in front of a movie. It was like one of those things where it got like swept under the rug at the time, but it was like, oh, first Disney Pixar film to not have like a short played in front of it, and it happened to be like the LGBTQ one, and I was like, wait, are you serious? Like, this has been a thing for
Yeah, no, I
both
really,
Disney and Pixar, and like
yeah.
you're gonna hide this kind of important story about somebody coming out to their family behind a paywall, and I'm just kind of like, are we doing this right now? Like, why are
Yeah.
you trying to hide a story? And I've seen the short. Like, why are you hiding this story behind a paywall versus it being in theaters?
I feel like Disney's position as a conglomerate and a big company probably plays into fact with that. I think a lot of companies nowadays are using like progressive marketing as a tactic in order to promote their companies, and
Mm.
I don't want to say that Disney is doing that because it's kind of wrong to be marketing kind of like a progressive movement when you don't mean it.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of situations in particular with Disney and Pixar where there would be like a character in a film, and it's not necessarily explicitly stated that they are, of like LGBTQ like communities or whatnot. And
Mhm.
they kind of like, it seems like they go into the back and retcon that every once in a while, and they don't explicitly say like, oh, they are.
They do a J.K. Rowling.
Kind of, or it's kind of like the thing where they do say that they are, but nothing in the film kind of shows that they are. But part of me wonders, does that make it normalized if you don't explicitly state it, or does it have to be visual? Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah. Oh,
Because
yeah.
there's one thing to have a film where a character, like an LGBTQ character, is like their whole identity is based on that, you know, and
Mhm.
that's one thing in itself. And there's another where they are an LGBT character, but that doesn't affect them like as directly as like their character being specifically derived to be a part of the LGBTQ community, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So it's kind of like the question of, is it morally correct to have a character based out of a community for it being visual and out in the world? Or is it better to have somebody who's a part of the community, but it doesn't necessarily define their character because that they are?
To answer that,
That's kind of a complicated
it
question,
is
right?
it is a very complicated question. And I don't know if you can go either way with that, because it's like it's really depending on the situation, I
Right.
guess. And I know there's going to be folks in the audience that was like, that answer is not good enough, you know what I mean? But um I would rather it be something that is like that caters towards the story. Like the story needs to, like, have it be like, okay, well, this person happens to be this character the way they are, but like it's, their pride, they have pride in that, but it's not necessarily the focus, I guess. And I know
Yeah.
that's okay. I'm saying that, and I really, really don't know. Like I'm talking out of context. Honestly, I feel like I'm talking out of my ass. But I think if I were to think about it, I would want to like see these characters like, they're just living out their identities, their pride, and like all of these things, and then be part of that story and not be something that you could tack on at the end, or something that, oh, you didn't know, kind of thing.
Mm.
And like I want to be more than just signaling, and it's just more see, I don't know, because I don't necessarily identify with the LGBTQ community, so I wouldn't know.
Yeah. I just find that like a very interesting kind of like point to think about, because I've thought about it before, right? Because on one hand, it's good to be able to visualize a character that's a part of a community, because that basically brings awareness by having that
Mhm.
ability to be seen. But I think part of it is also like, if you're a part of that community, right? Like I know if I was a part of a certain community, like I would want to think that I was normal, right? It's not like I'm any different from any other person, right? So
Mhm.
it's kind of like that whole kind of situation. So the only film that I can think of in recent time that has kind of made me think it does it tactfully, reasonably so, I might be wrong in saying this, would be like Love, Simon,
Yeah, I can
right?
see that. Yeah.
Because like to me at least, I mean, I might be wrong because I'm also not a part of the community, so it's really hard for me to look at something and be like, oh, that very much is a good example of it, you know?
Mhm.
But at least from an outsider's perspective, like to me that film essentially was um like very tied in with what you would normally see in a movie that would be like any person could be the self-insert. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? Like it's a film about like what is the premise of the film again? It's like a guy
Who
who
was
wants
closeted. I think I wouldn't say he was exploring his identity, but he just kind of like he knew who he was, but like there was all of these social cues that he was following, and
actually,
like
you know,
yeah.
now that I think about it that way, I have to take it back. I don't think that's a good example of it being like that
I don't.
because it's
I was also going to say too. It's like
it's hard to think about it
Yeah.
that way, but it's like okay, I don't think Love Simon is a good example, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
now, because it's like his character is inherently tied with the community that he's in.
Mm-hmm.
But um either way, it's kind of like very difficult, right? Like I'm pretty sure there's a way to do it tactfully, but I don't think Disney has done it tactfully, is what I'm trying to get at.
This is the same company that said in Disney Plus they were gonna put in Love Victor, which is basically the TV spinoff of of the
Love
movie of
Simon.
Love Simon. There was, I think there was like this pseudo promise that it would be on Disney Plus as one of their first 6 month plan for their service. They totally canned that idea and put it on Hulu. And I
Like
was
it
just
got
like,
shelved.
no, it eventually got released, and I saw it on Hulu, and it was good. Good times were had by all. But it was this thing where, well, if you're gonna do this with the Disney Plus platform, where you're not gonna like put these, this like if you're gonna make these promises where you're gonna represent the LGBT community, and you're not doing it, then what are you really trying to say, Disney?
Yeah. I don't know if oh god, I think Disney Plus is kind of a hard argument for that, you know. There are prime examples of them kind of sidelining like these kind of like LGBTQ stories.
Mm,
And you know, I'm not even going to go ahead and say like there isn't, because there is, obviously. But I don't know, Disney Plus seems like one of those streaming platforms that's very difficult to pinpoint, because it hasn't necessarily done as well as a lot of its competitors. At least I would argue that. I don't think it's in like the top rank. I personally think it's still Netflix.
mhm.
But I think part of it is that Disney Plus is currently based off of films and shows that have already been established in like regular media for a long time. So
Yeah.
like you have like your original Disney content, you have Marvel and whatnot, and that's fine and dandy, right? But they don't have like a big platform of their own shows to kind of like build off their platform. And I think they're starting to do that now with like WandaVision. They're like having the Falcon and Winter Soldier thing coming up very soon. And you know,
It's still they're building off a property. Going back to your like initial point, they're still building off from like the Marvel films and things like that.
right.
Like I think some of the only newer content I feel comes from like the National Geographic end, like that Jeff Goldblum show where he's just like
Yeah.
trying to explore like different countries and like different places. That's like that, and you can make the argument that some of the Disney exclusive stuff where they kind of like make their own Disney propaganda, I guess, or like cater to like hardcore Disney fans, like those documentaries, like that exists on that platform too, and so
Yeah, I think
yeah,
Disney Plus in particular, their whole branding is kind of what's hindering them, right? Because the whole strategy for them having a consumer market is based on them providing content for things that have already built popularity.
right,
Essentially, like you'd have your, you know, of course Star Wars is going to be a big hit, which is why Mandalorian is so big. Bless baby Yoda.
yeah. Bless Grogu
Oh
now.
my god, I forgot that was his name. But anyway, so yeah, you know, like there's you know the Mandalorian, and then obviously there's Marvel, and I already had like a weird feeling thinking that like you know oh we're gonna go from releasing just films, which is accessible to everybody, to
Mhm.
releasing shows that you need to buy our platform in order to keep up with the entire Marvel cinematic universe. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right.
So I think there's just a kind of like a sense of like you can kind of side eye it a little bit, and you're kind of like, I kind of see what you're doing.
Yeah.
But anyway,
In terms of
um,
like representation, and I don't want to make 100% the comparison between what's going on the LGBTQ community and like the Black community, but like historically, like there's actresses like Lena Horne, right? Legendary African American actress, like worked on Warner Brothers and MGM, right?
mhm.
um Literally they would make films with Lena Horne just to check off the checklist of like diversity at the times of the 50s and the 40s. And then when you get to when you distribute these films to the South, the way the films were written, you could cut out Lena Horne scenes in the South and still distribute the film.
Mm.
So I just want to try to like hold Disney accountable as an audience member. It's like I have no pull, but as somebody that has its somewhat of a platform, like I'm gonna say like Disney is, what are you bringing to the table when you cancel a show about somebody understanding their sexual identity off of your mainstream streaming platform? That is like your marquee streaming platform. You do that,
Right, yeah. It just, out of all of the companies that should be bringing light to these kind of films, it should be Disney, seeing as how they're literally like King Mickey, like at the top of the food
But
chain.
but does it have to be? I get,
I mean, it doesn't, but you would expect, like, at least if you want to bring visibility to these kind of films, like the one that's making the most money to kind of embrace it. But also, like, I do understand that if like Disney were to 100% full send and say like, we do support these kind of views and stuff like that, they are theoretically alienating part of their audience. I'm honestly okay with that. But
yeah, we would agree that we're very liberal in the way we consume our media.
I would personally be fine with that. But I just think like, if I were to argue in defense of Disney, putting a definitive stance on something would make it very hard to fully market themselves the way that they are, because I feel like, I don't really think, personally speaking, of like, if someone were to tell me like, oh yeah, I'm a part of the LGBTQ community, that doesn't make them any different to me from any other person that I know.
Okay.
Like they're just a person to me. Like if they're my friend, they're always still going to be my friend. It's not going to
thank you, Kalani. I'm just kidding.
You're welcome. No, but no, like I don't think of anybody who's a part of those communities as any different from myself.
Yeah.
Because they're not. They have, the same wants, the same needs, the same motives. And they're probably that much more successful than I am. Let's be real here. But
that's fair. That's very fair.
But yeah, so it's just like, for them to fully like embrace those kind of views, like I would be in support of it. Do I think it's going to happen? Probably not.
I just don't want them to do these like weird half measures where they kind of like make an announcement and then they roll it back, like they're really kind of like going the J.K. Rowling route, but J.K. Rowling really just kind of like really puts the foot in her own mouth almost. She's a very different types of yikes lately.
Yeah, we don't talk about J.K. Rowling. We stand the books. We don't stand J.K. Rowling. But in regards to Disney, right, or using Disney Plus as an example, I find it very difficult to argue definitively about like them specific. Like I do think that they are sidelining those kind of stories, like minority stories about people who are a part of the LGBTQ community. I think they are doing that, but I find that using Disney Plus as an example to argue it is kind of like on shaky ground, because they have sidelined other shows as well.
Right.
So it does, like, if I were to argue for it, I probably would steer away from using Disney Plus as my argument. And
your primary source. Yeah.
Right. Like I would look more towards like their intent towards like films that they've released. Right. Because that's more consistent and they've put in a budget for it. But Disney Plus, like as a platform, is already kind of like shaky to me. And also, a lot of people have discussed Disney Plus as a platform in comparison to like Netflix, Hulu,
HBO Max, Amazon Prime, yeah,
Peacock for all we know from NBC. It's like honestly, Disney Plus has to do a lot more to become a competitor in that scene. And
Mhm.
to top it off, their UI is horrible and they force you to click out of their shows in order to go to the next one, which is horrifying. But I do like, if they're going to succeed, like they're going to have to do a lot more in order to fix their streaming platform, and that to some degree could include including films a part of those communities that need it.
Mhm.
But I just think that Disney Plus as a platform is kind of shaky. Like I don't think it's that great.
I need my family's password to really really get a good idea, but I would say for me it's the my my main concern has always been top of the level management, really just kind of like, if you are going to be having at this point a pseudo monopoly on entertainment, and you're putting this progressive forward slant to some of the movies and some of the things that you're doing, I as an audience member, I'm going to hold you up to that, to
Yeah.
that, do those promises, to those the things you do at me, and
Yeah.
I'll do that to any company. Like same for like HBO, right? Like they've done some shady stuff lately in terms of like how they're releasing their 2020 lineup,
Really?
Wonder Woman.
What have
Yeah,
they
like
done? Give me the tea, sis.
yes, I'll give you the tea. But like the thing that HBO Max has been in hot water, or like at least the Warner Brothers production company or like distribution company, they have basically said, well, we're not going to go into theaters anytime soon, so therefore all of our lineup for 2021 will be on the on not Disney Plus, on our HBO Max platform. And as a
Oh.
consumer, like there's a proposition of like, oh cool, new content, and I don't have to get into a theater. Another side of things is that this is HBO Max, relatively new person into the market, even though it's been kind of like a strange kind of couple years, because you had HBO Go, you had HBO Now, and now you have HBO Max, and it's just been kind of a little confusing. But it's a new player in this system, and like Netflix had years to kind of build up. It had years to literally take a random script in front of a Ralph and make it into a production. That's a common joke, but it's it's HBO, Warner Brothers. Like, you've invested millions, like $250,000 on these like films like Wonder Woman, Tenet by Christopher Nolan, like these films that have big budgets to a streaming platform. And I just hope that like the creatives, the people that work, behind the camera, the grips, like the people that do lighting, the people that do catering, that they're compensated for. Because it's like,
Yeah.
if they're not gonna be in theaters, like how much, like the dollar value. And I've been a big proponent. It's like, if you like something, you know get involved into the economy of it. And of course I know that there's pirating and all of this stuff. It's like it in itself, it's its own economy, and a way for people to get into entertainment or like entertainment properties. But I think over time, it's like, if you are getting a lot of enjoyment out of it, you would want to like, hey, I want to support this, I want to pay, I want to
Yeah.
vote with my dollar. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's how they got into hot water, in terms of like theaters and things like that. And it's tough. I wholeheartedly feel that I would be going back to a theater once people are vaccinated. I could like show on my phone that like, hey, I'm vaccinated. I could be out in public still with a mask on, and things like that, and go see a movie, like have the confidence to go see a movie in person, right?
Yeah.
I have a feeling
I
that will still happen. It's just, it's kind of weird and like wishy-washy that HBO Max has done this. God damn it.
I just like I agree for the most part. Like if things got better, I think I would be just as excited to go to a movie theater to go watch a film. But it just makes it difficult, right? Because the landscape that we're in makes it so that you can't be in crowds of people right now
Mhm.
without being at a risk of potentially getting sick. And I think, if we're thinking about ourselves as people, right? You can confidently say like I know that I will take care of myself. But it's kind of difficult to say that about everyone else, even though you want to think that.
And it's not just you, it's like you and who you live with. If you live with other people, like say if you
Exactly.
have like flatmates, for me, like kind of a primary caregiver to my mom and dad to some degree.
Right.
I just kind of watch them. Anyways, like they're there around me all the time, right? I'm working
Mm-hmm.
from home. For me to go to a film, for me to do things that could be risky outside of our kind of COVID pod, like, kind of like our group of people that, we know for sure that like hasn't really gone out, like only gone out for certain things and like, don't go traveling or anything. Um, like outside of that, like I can only control what I do in this realm of what my interactions between me and my parents. And so,
Right.
for me to go to a film at this time, and
Is
I
a
know
risk.
it's a risk. So I'm
Yeah.
just like, I don't have the confidence yet until I get vaccinated. I think that's just the ultimate thing right now. I don't have the confidence until X.
Right. Yeah. I agree. I do definitely think the exact same way.
Hmm.
Um I do find it, well, okay, I guess I'll use this as an example. So Wonder Woman recently came out on HBO, right? And my
Hmm.
aunt is a big Wonder Woman fan. Like I got introduced to Wonder Woman because of her, and that was back when what's her name?
Gal Gadot.
No, nope, 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 the first one.
Not Lana Clarkson.
Nope. I'm googling it. Hold on.
Original, yeah. So Wonder Woman, right?
Yeah, well, anyways, when I got introduced to Wonder Woman, when the original like TV show was still a
Wonder
thing, and she
Woman.
bought me like the DVD pack. What's her name? What's her name? Where is
What?
her
Wait, one.
name?
It's not Wonder Carter.
It's Linda Carter. It's Linda Carter.
Linda
It's Linda
Carter.
Carter.
There you go.
Okay, anyway. So I got introduced to her back when she was Wonder Woman. And that was like when I was like
Hmm.
7 or something. So she's been a big fan of it. And she bought HBO specifically to watch Wonder Woman. Excuse me. And as soon as it was over, like she canceled.
Oh, really?
Yeah. She was just like, I didn't really like it. I don't need to rewatch it. We're done. Even though I told her to watch other shows that were on there beforehand, but aside from that, so like that happens a lot, right? And
I was gonna say, throw your aunt for a loop. Like, highly recommend Euphoria.
oh, no, she would never watch that. But yeah, so like that happened, right?
Yeah.
And like I understand it as like a driving force. We've seen how, like, it pains me to say this kind of, we've seen this kind of with Mulan.
Hmm.
How much money they theoretically could make, even though I don't think it matched the budget that they spent for Mulan because of all of the backlash that happened.
A lot of yikes. A lot of
Yeah.
yikes.
But I mean also like Disney live action, we don't talk about them, but besides the point. So like I think with the landscape that we're in, like that is technically one of the only ways you could theoretically watch films, unless you decided to do kind of like the other thing, which is like we'll put it on TV for everyone to watch.
Right.
But then that also kind of brings about the question of how would you make money from it,
Hmm.
right? So I mean, I don't know how that all works out in the end, because financing is not my thing, but besides the
Yeah,
point.
because you have that for TV, like for Fox, for example, you have like 911 Texas. Lone Star or whatever. Use that as an example. I know I don't watch it. I'm just these are syndicated or like network television shows. Like they
Well,
have the advertisements that they have to kind of like, that's where their money
yeah.
is coming from,
Yeah, but I feel like syndication is slightly different from like streaming platforms. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
streaming platforms, you have the consumer paying direct to the
whatever.
platform. Yeah.
Yeah. But so I do find it like I understand that it could be seen as shady, but also like with everything that's happening, it kind of feels like that's the only way, if that makes any sense.
It's like bearing. It's like if they kind of know that the Fumi. God damn it! I think has been a pretty long podcast. If the movie
Yeah.
had, they kind of suspect that they won't make a lot of money out of it.
Yeah.
That they could just bury it in a streaming platform.
It doesn't.
But they still kind of charge for it still.
Yeah.
Remember, like they still charged for the film, and it was only access for a certain amount of time after you paid for it.
Yeah. I hope it doesn't make these companies more inclined to put films on like that versus like in theaters, because I personally love going to movie theaters to watch films. So it would pain me if this became the new norm. But to go back to our original discussion of like showing groups of minorities or like people who are part of the LGBTQ community in films, I think as time has gone on, I've become much more vigilant of instances where I'm just kind of like, this seems kind of like, doesn't seem real. Like it does seems
pandering.
Like, yeah, like, okay, going back to Disney, I'm not saying this is the case.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not. I could be very well wrong. But that scene in Endgame where all of the women get together in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and like run, and they're like, don't worry, we'll handle it. And I was just like,
okay.
I'm not saying that it was bad. I'm just saying that it seemed like to me like a moment of pandering, and I think I get that kind of feeling very frequently. So like I don't know, like I had that feeling with what film? Anyways, there was another film where something similar like that happened. I think it was Wonder Woman, actually. I'm not saying that it was bad. I actually really liked Wonder Woman 1.
1984 or like the
first one. We don't talk about the second one.
Oh, okay. I have yet to seen it, by the way.
I'm just kidding. I don't even know what happens. All I know is that everyone around me has told me that they don't like it. So
okay.
But so the first film, right? I liked it. I thought the film was very interesting, but also at the end when she's like, in the end I realized like you do it for love. I was just like, okay. I don't know. I just, maybe I'm kind of like a cynic or something. I just kind of look at it and I'm like,
Kalani, you've gone too far. You're at the nihilistic millennial stage.
Shit. No, I mean, like, okay, honestly, like you can be like, I'll do it for love, but also like part of me is just like, why? You got so many other factors going for you out of all of the things. If
I was thinking about it, like, well, yeah, to think about it, like she was a very strong-willed female character that, like it wasn't like that pandering, like, oh, she's strong without a man or whatever, but it was just kind of like, it wasn't that, I guess. I don't know where I'm going with this either.
Yeah, no, to me, here, let me put it this way. To me,
okay,
right?
Yes, go on.
Like, you could use love as your reasoning for a film, right? But for a film that showed so much empowerment for a woman, right? Like, in the end, for her to be like, I've realized that like this moment is like whatever, the meaning was love, essentially, that whole spiel just seemed kind of like a you had so many motivating factors, right? Why does it have to revolve around the guy that died? I mean, obviously, okay, honestly, that might be a little bit, I caught it.
Oh God.
It might be a little bit harsh for me to say it that way, right? But I just think like she had so many different reasons to be like motivated by in the film. So I just wonder like why out of all of them it was just like love.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, obviously I could be wrong. You know, maybe I'm just a cynic.
I want to think about instances where I felt cynical about a film, or like ways where I feel like it was just kind of like, huh, is this something that just try to like hit on those notes where I'm like, it's like pandering almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just think maybe there are certain times when I watch a film,
Mhm.
right? And for the most part everything goes okay. And then there's a glitch in the matrix and I'm like I see reality for a quick second and I'm like this doesn't really match 100%, and sometimes you sense like there's a motive behind it. And like
Well, how about this? I think an easy target, and I know people are gonna hate me for this, but it's Star Wars to some degree. It's like pandering towards the fandom almost, and it's just like there are aspects and things that I think I really appreciated in The Last Jedi that I'm like, you know what? As much as I'm like, wishy-washy on these things, it's like it's bringing up a lot of like interesting things that are so out there for a creator in Star Wars and things like that. And I'm like, I like different. You know, by the end of the day, if as long as they follow through with some of these things, some of these ideas, it's like one of the main impactful things about The Last Jedi is like at the towards the end, you see like a Jedi, like a force sensitive person like pick up that I assume it was a broomstick, and it was like,
oh,
oh, like, so are we going back to the like anybody could kind of be a Jedi, or like,
right, yeah.
like are we going back to that like like the classical, like the first trilogy, like the original, the OG trilogy, where you know you have that glimmer of the eye as a kid. I was like, anybody could be a Jedi, and it's not like the whole metachlorian things. And I was like,
Yeah.
that in itself was a new thing, right? That in itself was George Lucas trying to I wouldn't say retcon, but like just kind of like adding another layer to the mythos of like Star Wars. And I'm slightly getting a hang of it like now that it's canon.
Mm.
But in the frame of like Last Jedi as an entity, I thought, you know, to some degree, I think it did a lot to deconstruct what made Star Wars what it is. And then when I honestly, I even forgot what's the new Rise of Skywalker. There you go, Rise of Skywalker. I was like, oh, so we're just not gonna talk about that last film.
Yeah.
You know, we're just gonna reference it, and then we're gonna go into these like fan debates. It's like, oh, is Rey like an important character, or you know, is you know, there was like a will they, won't they with like Finn and that one guy, you know,
Poe?
and Poe. I gotta be honest, as a person that saw Last Jedi, I was just like, you know, I like Kelly Marie Tran, and it fucking irks me what happened to her and
Ooh, I hate
Star
that
Wars
too.
fans. But I also did wanted to see if Disney would follow through in like, what if Finn and Poe would, you know, a same-sex couple.
Yeah.
Like, you know, there was a lot to that. And
Yeah.
yeah. So it got to a point where I was just like, oh, okay. It'll be perspective until like I could get a full grasp of like, you know, Rise of Skywalker does have its positives, does has its negatives, but it is still a part of a grand saga of Star Wars films.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This conversation is making me feel like I'm very much a cynic. I hate this.
I brought you. I brought you your identity.
Well, so my history with Star Wars is kind of weird because I've never watched the original Star Wars, but I've watched the 3 new ones.
Okay, we Mel and maybe Vega will have to sit down
Star
and watch
Wars!
Star Wars together.
No, but so I don't have opinions about the original trilogy. I have opinions about the newest trilogy. And this kind of ties back into our discussions previously with Disney sidelining characters that are of minority groups and a part of LGBTQ, like a part of that community.
Mm-hmm.
And Star Wars, I think, as a trilogy series, was plagued with a lot of problems. And I think in particular, the fact that they had 3 different directors a part of the trilogy made it so that a lot of the stories that they wanted to convey just got muddled in the fact that it just was all up in this drama.
Are you saying 1, 2, and 3, or 6, 7, and 8?
The newest 3.
The newest 3. So like Force Awakens.
I don't know the
Jedi.
names for the life of me.
But it's the trilogy that involves Rise of Skywalker, right? The most recent one.
The ones that involve Rey, Poe, and Kylo Ren, whatever.
Ren. Oh, okay, those. Oh, J.J. Abrams he was the director for 2 of them, though.
But the second one was done by someone different.
Rian Johnson, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And, to go back on your discussion about if Rey was somebody of no significance, I think the story that Rian Johnson had put out in the second movie would have made a lot more sense. Yeah. One. But also I do feel like not Poe. What's his name? Finn. Finn's character got sidelined.
Oh yeah, for the last film. Yeah.
No, for 2 and 3. He got pushed to the side. I think if Disney had committed, or not Disney, if the directors had committed to telling a story about a character who was originally a stormtrooper who became a Jedi and continued with that narrative throughout the entire 3 films, that would have made for a very meaningful film, because that's like a person dealing with their traumatic past. It also has to deal with the fact that it's a character trying to maybe relearn to be good, even though he's inherently a good person, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that also, to your argument, would have enhanced the relationship between Finn and Poe. I think that would have been highlighted if they decided to go with that narrative. But I think having him as a forefront character would have made a lot more sense than having Rey as a forefront character. But if you wanted to go with the whole narrative theme of anyone could be a Jedi, both of those characters would have made good parallels for each other to match it, because he comes as a stormtrooper, which is millions of these troopers who you never see their faces because they're always wearing masks. And Rey could have been a character who literally had no significance in terms of their family.
Right.
And so if they had kept that narrative, I think it would have made for a much more interesting trilogy in the long run, because then you would have just 2 characters who literally started from nothing and still are technically from nothing becoming Jedi, which are the most powerful people you could be in that universe.
Yeah.
And the fact that, God, maybe it's because I fucking hate the fact that they use this as a trope, but the fact that in the end it kind of becomes this whole thing between Kylo Ren and Rey just makes me kind of irked a little bit.
It's just as weird. It's the girl loves a bad guy.
I see this reoccurring theme of me hating love in films, and I hate it. I want to say that there's nothing wrong with using love as a theme in a film, right? But to me, if it kind of comes out of nowhere, why?
Right.
I think even
oh, sorry.
So no, it's okay. But last thing I'll say, at least for now, until we continue this conversation after your point, if Kylo Ren even if they wanted to make him a foil to Rey's character, him coming from somewhere and her coming from nowhere, right? And eventually they did lead to the love thing, right? They could have done it better than how they did it in the last film.
Yeah. I think I hate that we keep on going back to this, but it goes back to how Disney just don't have faith in their creators. Almost to some degree, they just faith in their creators. Rian Johnson, to this point, has directed Knives Out, one of the biggest critically acclaimed whodunit films in ever since the Orient Express, right? Not to dunk on JJ Abrams and not to dunk on like all these other creators that had, their glimmer in the eye to do these films and TV shows, but it's just almost idea that, maybe because they paid so much money for these properties that they feel like they have to take the safe route out versus actually telling a compelling story. Like I think they've have kind of since learned that, like geez, like they really held on to a director that directed a Hitler movie where he plays Hitler after directing Thor Ragnarok, Taika Waititi. Yeah, like they held on to him,
You know, we
and
can't
they
say
called
anything
back.
about Jojo Rabbit, though.
What?
Jojo Rabbit was a very interesting movie. I need to finish watching that.
Such a good film. It's a great like it's a great like film to watch in like a film class where like it kind of like builds upon its themes and like there's like these
it's more
examples
satirical,
of
if anything, right?
foreshadowing. Yeah, it's just a good film all around. And like they've have
But just to your point.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. As she drinks a giant
No,
Coke.
I mean like as in like to your point of like them having a director who literally shot a film about Hitler while acting as Hitler. Go on.
Yeah.
I mean, like for you to elaborate.
Finish my point. It's like I think Disney has since kind of like reverse course to that to some degree. They took a break off of Star Wars and really want to focus in on like these creators that really have done really good stuff with The Mandalorian. I'm really excited for what they do next for some of these, shows. It shows me that, they're really actually like looking at their mistakes, what went wrong, what can work, like they have these properties, they need to do something with them. And the way they treat their directors and their creators, I just like, it has that tinge of like, you bought all these things, right? You bought all your toys, right? But
for the money,
right? But like you're not really serving these stories to the best of its ability, or you're not trusting in the directors that actually want to do something different. But then again, I'm that type of audience that expects different things. I'm that type of audience member that I would want to be challenged on what a director wants to put forward. Maybe not a lot of people want that, in terms of a Star Wars film. Maybe I'm off base. That can be a reality too, and that sucks because I want Star Wars to be more, and I just got kind of the same, and it's not. Yeah. It's gonna give me a lot of time for me to go back and say, well, it really wasn't as bad as I thought. But still like I have issues. It's like I have to get to that point when I saw episode 1 and 2 and 3 where I was so jaded about Star Wars to finally, okay, well, there are some good things, there are some bad things, there are some things that I want to see come back, like Obi-Wan.
Yeah. I just with Star Wars in particular, at least the newest ones, I'm not a Star Wars fan, like as a disclaimer, because I've never watched it, so I can't definitively say that I'm a Star Wars fan yet. Maybe it'll change when I watch the first couple of ones. But as a person who consumed the Star Wars films, to have such an engaging premise and for it to fall flat by the last two films just makes me feel so upset. And maybe, even with this discussions, I'm starting to realize that I personally think that love is kind of like a cop-out theme for a film, which is horrifying because I don't want to think that. I have no heart, basically.
Well, but, I'm not going to recommend you We Are Who We Are then.
No, here's the thing. Mm-hmm. I personally do like love as a theme. Like, I don't think I have any problems with that. The only times that I feel like it becomes a problem is when, to me, it feels like your film is only based on love because it's a cop-out reason. Mm-hmm. And,
well,
I'm
How
not
about this?
saying that's
Are you saying in terms of Kappa? Do you say like at its Deus Ex Machina moment, like where at the very end of the film, it's like, oh, love was the last thing that brought Ray back from the brink of death, and it was the love between Kylo and Ray that really, turned Kylo into a good person.
I think for me it's more like when it seems out of place.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think, for example, right, like a good use of love is if you want to tie it back to Star Wars, I think Kylo Ren's relationship with Leia is a really good example of love as a theme because
Mm-hmm.
it's Leia's devotion or Kylo's devotion to his mother that essentially ties him to being like still a good person at the heart because it's like you can see what he does to his dad, right? And that's kind of fucked up. Let's be real. But like you sense the hesitation when it comes to his mom and I think that kind of shows that he has some sense of humanity as a character and I think that's reasonable. Like
Mm-hmm.
that seems legitimate as
Right.
a story theme. But when like with Wonder Woman the original one, right? Like that to me seems just kind of like an out of place kind of feeling. And I think it's kind of like the whole thing of like it just like you've never mentioned it before. Why is that your motivating factor as a
Factor. Yeah.
character now? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like if a character is literally built upon it and it's established in their history as as a written character that's their theme kind of, then it to me it makes sense and I don't have a problem with that. But when it doesn't and it seems more like you're just kind of tossing it in to toss it in as like oh it's like a feel good theme to have, right? Like love
Mm-hmm.
as a unifying factor, love saves the world. Like I don't like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I wonder if this plays a part of it. I know the fandom plays a part of it, like a big part, especially when it comes to like Star Wars and to some degree these I think they're making Indiana Jones and what film franchise are they making out of Disney?
I don't
Uh
know anymore, god.
oh, and like all these Marvel films, but like this notion that it always have to end on like a happy note or like this is I don't
Like a
know.
happy ending type thing.
Yeah, and like for us as an audience member, like it's like they try to shoe in these themes of like love at the end or like the bad guy gets his comeuppance at the end, sort
Mm.
of deals. And is that because we expect that as a society? And I know it might be specific with American filmmaking, that I just don't know what's the answer for that. And I get it. I'd like I think I get your jadedness, and it's like I don't totally understand. It's like it's these bits in films where at the very end, oh that ending just kind of came out of nowhere. Where you as an audience member get that feeling. It's like, yeah, that seems out of place. And it doesn't seem genuine towards a storyteller, and it feels kind of like focus grouped and things like that. And I'm gonna make not to put Disney down in the dumps. I'm gonna
We're putting Disney
recognize.
down in the dumps. It's okay.
I'm gonna recognize game for game, but Endgame really pushed that and said, we're not gonna have a happy ending in
They're like psych.
Avengers Infinity War. Yeah, yeah, they snap half of the population out of existence, and you
Yeah.
had this really emotional like thing from Peter Parker when he says he doesn't want to go, right?
Yeah.
And sorry, Kalani, I'm bringing it back up because Tom Holland is like, it's my thing.
We
But
stand.
but the like they made a risk, and I think they knew that they wanted to make a two film thing because there's so much meaning from all of these films from the beginning of Iron Man up until that point.
Mm.
And even the ending of Endgame, you still have this kind of bittersweet pseudo like ending where you have one of your mains die in your film,
Mm-hmm.
and you have another character that has even though it kind of has a feeling of um like a gushy ending, like it's still kind of a bittersweet thing because he gets to relive his entire life with the freedom that he always wanted,
Yeah.
you know and I'm hinting at Captain America.
Captain
And
America.
so it's
America's ass. Sorry.
yes, it's called stairmasters and squatting, um which I missed a gym for that.
I need to go to the gym. Um,
But yeah, I think to some degree, and I think to leave this at the last point, and I think I want to just pin this bow and just say, it's like, do you think that as a society we have this notion of like, I wouldn't say toxic positivity, but like a film has to have a happy ending, but doesn't need to have a happy ending?
I feel kind of conflicted on it because personally I think you don't need it, but I do think that sometimes films put unrealistic expectations on the world. Like you always expect things to have an answer, and so when things don't, you always kind of are like searching for a reason as to why it doesn't have an answer, and I think that's sometimes when those problems come up. But when it comes to films, I don't necessarily think you need a bookend for a film to work out. I just think in some way, if a film doesn't have a happy ending, the person as a viewer is left with a sense of feeling kind of like empty. So I don't know if that's the case of like why people would want to put in happy endings at the end of a film, because it's a story and you expect that. Um, I guess in a way it does kind of put some like unrealistic expectations onto like real life and other films as well. But like to tie back to the original discussion that we were having before, I don't think my sense of jadedness comes from the fact that certain films need to have a happy ending. I just think that when certain things, it doesn't even have to be love per se, but if a certain theme gets established into a film and that theme did not have a history of being established previously, and it just gets yeeted into there and they're like, all right, well, here it is, just take it, then that just becomes a problem for me, because then it doesn't feel legitimate. It just feels like you're doing it just to do it.
Yeah.
And I think that's my gripe with Wonder Woman. It's just the fact that like I I like the film, I understand its motivations, but I just think that the fact that like in the end her whole purpose is just like the answer is love just seems like it had no build up for it to be that.
Right.
Maybe it was Steve. I don't know.
Oh yeah, there's another Steven in the superhero movie that doesn't have to be Captain America.
The other one is Chris Pine, so you know it's still in the Chris's.
Oh God, I just realized that.
You got
Oh
a Chris
God.
Evans and a Chris Pine, so it's like
You also have Chris Hemsworth and what? Chris
Pratt.
Pratt. Yeah.
It's like 6 degrees of separation at this point, right?
Yeah,
But
I think Chris is like this generation's wasn't it Ronald? No, it wasn't Ronald. Shit. I know back in the 50s there was so many people named Reynolds, right? Debbie Reynolds.
I don't know.
I forgot.
But either way, to kind of bookend it, right?
Yeah.
I think my personal opinion, you can kind of like tack on another ending if you feel like, is that when it comes to film writing, I personally like it if for example, seeing as how this is kind of how a lot of films are nowadays, if it is a film that has different films to tie it all together into like a trilogy, a sequel, whatever, yada yada.
Mm-hmm.
I personally like it if the characters are written with their themes inlaid in their story. And to me, like missed opportunities for compelling stories piss me off.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you successfully write a character with a theme that defines them, and it's like you can see that theme replaying throughout their time in whatever series it is, I think that's a good tie-in.
Mhm.
Whereas if you have a character who's doing stuff, but then in the end they just kind of tack something on at the end of it and it feels ingenuous, whether it's like the love theme or like before when I was mentioning like the whole thing about like the women coming together. It was a cool scene, don't get me wrong. I really liked it. But I just like I've become, at least I would like to think, more aware of things that feel somewhat ingenuous and done just because of like, you know, the reasons we know why.
Mhm.
Whereas like if there were films where those things happen and you knew that it came with intent, like I think I would be okay with that. But those
Yeah.
feel disingenuous to me.
Yeah. I just hope, I think at this point that, and this is not just Disney, but like, production companies or like, big names like Fox. Oh, that's also a Disney company. Warner Brothers, Sony, and like these other big names in the film industry, feel like they can trust the creators to tell a story, within a budget, all of these other things, because, ultimately by the end of the day, as much as we want to be creator forward with things, it's still like a monetary financial thing too,
Yeah.
so like I would really hope that they can trust both the creators and the audience to call out for both diversity and like, trust in these creators to create these stories versus checking boxes or, like just having kind of like a miss and you if you blink you'll miss it moments where, there's a same-sex kiss in the last jet, well,
Like
not
doing it
last
for
jet,
like a quota.
yeah. So I would hope so that it this pressure between creators and audience members really opens the door for these companies to say, okay, we need to trust in that there is an audience for movies like, Call Me by Your Name versus Love, Simon. You know what I mean? For LGBTQ representation, more.
Or even the girl on fire, when what is it called?
The girl with the dragon tattoo.
Nope. Hold on.
Oh,
Where is it?
Lady on Fire.
Lady on Portrait of a Lady on Fire.
Oh yes, that one. That was a weird one because it's like I think it came out in 2018, but it still counted for the Academy Awards or something like that. I remember it had a weird thing
It
that
says it's from
happened.
2019, but who knows at this point?
I know. I just remember there was something weird when it came up to like award season for that film.
Well, anyways,
Yeah. But yeah, I think now we have a film podcast.
I'd be down for more film podcasts. I actually do want to explore film a little bit more. It's just like it's a very interesting discussion to have, especially if you think about like the people who are working behind the camera, the people who are working in front of it, the people who are directing it. It makes for like a very interesting discussion on how films work. I personally am much more into like story writing because I've always just been into like very intriguing storylines, but yeah. You can provide insights on technical things.
Yeah, I could be very technical, a very finance forward, and you could be very story forward.
But I think you have very good inputs when it comes to like purpose for films. You know what I mean? Like
I bring the very social impact angle to things. And then
yeah.
I think part of it is that I kind of live in these two spectrums of like, I do work with, like this nonprofit pseudo like social justice surrounding work that I do. And then at the same time, like I am very critical of like, okay, well, if this film is being made with these creators for these reasons, like is this a film or is this a film propaganda film?
Yeah.
Like I've been diving a lot into like Chinese cinema and like what does that mean when they're basically making their version of Rambo, you know what I mean? And I'm just kind of like, okay, that's kind of interesting. Did I not realize? Yeah. Or like Terminator or all of these things.
Hmm.
But
We
but yeah,
continue more with film
I think
discussion
we
next
can
time.
continue more because at this point, I think this is 2 hours. I'm gonna probably break down this podcast into 2 parts, maybe. But I didn't even get to some of the other things that I wanted to talk about.
Wait, just because I'm curious, what other things did you have in mind to talk about?
I was thinking about mental health has been kind of like something in my mind lately, and just
Mm,
trying to be very forward in talking about it, because I feel like in Asian American circles it's like kind of like a taboo to even talk about
mm,
mental illness or even bring it up in a serious format. And I
yeah.
know we're not a serious format, but it's just something that I've been thinking about.
Mm.
uh Big tall vampire lady wanted to talk about that.
From from what is it?
Resident Evil 8, also aka Resident Evil Village.
There is so much artwork that I've seen on Twitter within the past 3 days of this tall ass witch lady.
My favorite.
She gives me what's her name? You know the girl that's in the castle? No, not House Moving Castle.
Oh,
The lady that like turns into an old grandma because she loses her powers.
yeah, the Wicked Witch of the West.
East, West, I don't
West,
remember
yeah.
her. Yeah, because
Yeah,
she's kind
I
of like
know.
tall and big, and then like she becomes a small old wrinkly lady.
Yeah.
She just gives me that.
I want to figure out that ending of that of that movie. I mean, Resident Evil Village.
Well,
If you,
we need to continue this conversation another time where we don't get sidetracked by film discussions.
yeah, by Disney, by Papa Disney. The Resident Evil Village, yeah. So much, so much plot.
Yeah,
Just saying,
there's a
just saying,
meme that
plot.
I always think about because of that lady, and I can't share it on the podcast right now.
I can say there's one that I feel like kind of encapsulates the feeling about big tall lady from Resident Evil, is the one that I think our friend of the show Vincent shared, where it's basically it uses a quote from the trailer. It's like, there you are, Ethan, and like Ethan like just hugs her, and I'm just like, she's supposed to say, you're supposed to run, right?
But anyways, we will. Was there anything else on your list that we did?
We did kind of talk about vaccine distribution, but only in like a tiny thing, because there was a lot to discuss in the sense of like there wasn't a plan.
I think we got sidetracked because we both are people that are interested in filmmaking, and so you might have to split this podcast into like COVID talks and then movie talks.
COVID talks and movie talks, and then President Biden, and how that has been kind of going, and have been kind of interesting to see, in the folks' reaction to him becoming president. And there was still a fear of violence after what had happened on the 6th.
Yeah.
But that it was a clear and present danger. That's true. But to see the new state capitol only have one protester to be there, I'm like, okay,
yeah,
maybe this QAnon thing petered out like after.
We can continue this.
Yeah. But anyways, if you, dear viewer, has gone to the point where you have said, when has this podcast is gonna end, it will end now.
Goodbye.
Thank you for watching. If you want to continue the conversations, please be in the comments. I know we discussed a lot, and I know that anything Star Wars related will have an audience, so I am excited to see what happens, because Last Jedi was very divisive, and I think we're the rare few people that was like, maybe there should be more differences. And then how are you recapping this one? What did we talked about in the beginning? Yeah, we talked about COVID a little bit. And then I hope you're doing safe. being safe, being nice to others, and this is very disingenuous. I feel like I'm like love is actually the main theme of this podcast.
Long story short, love is the reason for this podcast.
Yes, Kalani. So we'll see you next time. I'm really just dragging out this ending now at this point.
Time to go.
I just love this. We're gonna keep going. All right, we're gonna keep going. All right, bye, y'all.